Top of the morning, good afternoon, and hello, and welcome, planet Earth, and to all the coaches that are working on planet Earth, and even the ones that are not working. After today, you're going to be a working coach. But Dermot, I don't know how to. Trust me, after today, you will. Welcome. This is the Celtic Coach radio show where science, spirituality, and self-discovery meet. Think about the show in this way. If Steve Chandler, Wayne Dyer, and Marianne Williamson had a baby, it would be this show. We're going to be talking today to Steve Chandler and Kamin Samuel about their new book, Wealth Creation for Coaches. I've gone through the book. It's fantastic. I love it. Didn't make my hair grow back, but that's okay. I'm still working on that one. And I'm going through it again. Wonderful. So we're going to talk about this book today. Now, we're going to do it a little differently today. Usually I sit down with a cup of tea and I talk to Steve or Kamin and I ask them questions. But today we thought we'd do something a little different, since I love to experiment and I encourage coaches in their practices to experiment. So today we brought in a live audience. Hopefully everyone's alive. If you're not, just, start moving now. It'll be a good time. And we're going to have the audience members talk to Steve and ask questions about business building, creating clients, whatever it is around creating clients for coaches. It's kind of like the Dave Letterman show where the audience actually gets to speak to the guests instead of just Dave. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. It's going to be a lot enjoyable. So sit back, relax, and put your hands together for Kamin Samuel and Mr. Steve Chandler. All right, before we jump in, I suppose I should tell you a little bit about our guests. First of all, there are two people that have made a huge impact on my life personally and on my coaching business. I used to call it a practice, but now I actually call it a business where I show up every day. Kamin Samuel, PhD. She is an international rapid transformation coach. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady. She works with a lot of coaches. She helps them to move those negative, self-limiting beliefs to positive growth beliefs. She has a unique gift for transforming limited beliefs into unique gifts for transformation. She's also, by the way, the first U.S. Navy's female African-American helicopter pilot. She's also an award-winning bestseller author. Steve Chandler, everyone knows him. Steve, is it the grandfather of coaching or the godfather of coaching? I always get that mixed.
You could use either one, and I'd be fine.
Okay, because I've heard both, and I'm thinking, is it the godfather or grandfather? All right, world famous success coach, best-selling author. I asked Steve, how many books have you written, Steve? It's 30-something. And he said, I have no idea. I've lost track. He's an author, a public speaker, media personality, worked with CEOs, small business, university faculties, leader, major account salespeople, you name it. Steve has worked. He also has the founder of the Coaching Prosperity School and the author of more than 30 books. Mr. Chandler, welcome. All right, so we're going to open it up. Ask Steve whatever question you want. Kamin, so helpful in the interview, just say, hey, this is Mark, and I have a question for Steve or Kamin or both, and they may even answer it both themselves. Who knows? So let's jump in and let's play with some questions. We're going to be talking today again the wealth creation for coaches, Mr. Steve Chandler, Kamin Samuel. Let's hand the microphone over to the guest audience. What question would you like to ask Steve or Kamin about creating a coaching practice, building a prosperous coaching practice? Over to you. And just put your hands up, or actually use the reactions button if you could. That would be helpful. All right, Meredith. Come on down. The price is right. All right, Meredith.
Hello. Thank you. I am Meredith. Thank you so much, Dr. Kamin and Steve, for being here today. My question for both of you is, when it comes to building your business, and how do you approach working with individuals versus working with organizations, and really trying to suss out and explore where the possibilities are. Is especially my question is kind of leaning towards more of the organization part. But how do you think about those things similarly and differently?
I'll let you go first, Steve.
Okay, I'll go first. Well, I think it's a great question because I think there's a very big difference when acquiring individual clients and working with individuals. There is a kind of reverse backfire occurrence when we are too salesman-like or salesy or too self-promotion. And a lot of coaches make the mistake of trying to sell their services and be very impressive and get their name out there and speak powerfully and make a big impression, really sound like a coach when they talk to an individual. And individual clients require a lot of trust and relaxation, a sense of safety and rapport talking to you or talking to me. So if I come across saying, hey, hi, I've written over 30 books, I've coached over 100 companies and all that, it's a little intimidating, and it really creates more distance between me and a potential client than just asking general questions and getting to know someone. Businesses or organizations, on the other hand, I've found, and I used to do only that. For the first 5 or 6 years, I did only organizations. I didn't coach individuals. And they are more bottom line. They are more welcoming of a stronger approach. Here's my program. Here's where it has helped other organizations. Here's how it works. Here's why it works. And they are not put off by persistence, for example. So if you're a potential individual coach of mine and I'm persistent, hey, are you going to get back to me? Why are you ghosting me? I didn't hear back from you on whether you want to coach with me. It's a turnoff. It really breaks the element of trust. But businesses, on the other hand, and organizations respect that kind of energy. They respect self-confidence. They respect being able to say how and why your training works or your coaching works. And they really want to know where it has worked before. If you have a track record, even if you only have one other organization that you've ever worked with, they want to know what happened over there. What did you bring in? How did it work? And so there's a real difference between the two. And one of them is I want to demonstrate high professional self-esteem, high professional esteem, strong confidence, track record. And I want to do research for an organization. I want to know what their mission is and anything I can find out about them. Individuals, on the other hand, I want to welcome them in, make them feel safe, make them feel comfortable, and have low pressure, non-salesy kind of conversation. Create a rapport, and it can last over a long period of time. Organizations, on the other hand, want to move quickly. If they want something changed or people coached to change productivity and performance, they want that change now. They don't want to wait. So I don't want to play a long courtship game with an organization. I want to move into their their mindset, which is real day-to-day problem solving. Let's get this done. So I rambled for a while. Kamin, I'll have you give a better answer.
No, I think that's a great answer. And I think the only thing that stands in the way is the individual coach really knowing those differences that Steve, shared, Meredith, that the ability to flex between, kind of the ownership. So many of the coaches I work with are like, I don't want to self-promote. Their humility is very high, that kind of thing, which does not work in the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a level of practicing those nuances between both that the coach really has to lean into.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Meredith. Kamin, while I have you here, I want to ask you a question, and it doesn't dovetail much on what you just shared, but we'll try and make it so. In the book Wealth Creation for Coaches, chapter 15, you talk about the origin of wealth creation, which really at the bottom of it all, that's what we're talking about when, we're talking about serving, but getting paid, getting well paid for, Steve says, a well-paid coaching relationship, that's service. And you have an interesting line here in the chapter 15, the origin of wealth creation. You say that you are where wealth comes from. Now, when I first read that, I kind of thought, I kind of get what you idea. But once I read the chapter, I understood it. But could you just, for everyone listening, talk a little bit about you are where wealth comes from? What do you mean by that?
Well, that's such a great question, Dermot, because I think people think they'll think, oh, it's the economy. The
Yes,
economy is doing this, or
Mhm.
There's nobody in my area that has money, and there's really easy ways that I refute that. And so the ability for people to understand that our wealth, Steve says it a little differently about, if your bank account is low, look at how much service you're giving.
Mhm.
And I would say it's also what we believe is possible, that inside out approach to wealth, and the whole, much of the premise of the book is really that, wherever we are, we need to step our way into that next level. And that's all it is. It's what we believe about our skills, our bio, who we are, our, ownership. And so I was working with a gentleman last night, and he was, he was just leaving his job, but what he believed about himself was, lower from a neuroscience perspective. We'll put it into, we each come into this world with a high level of value, power, and safety. And so the challenge is the world and the family system takes that away. And as we grow, we have to put that back. And so this ability for us to see, as we own our value, our own internal value, when we own our power, which in my world comes to confidence, the confidence that comes from doing this work, and how safe do we feel inside to go get a no, to talk to somebody, to share the work, all of that then starts to feed into, well, what would I like to get paid for this? And, it doesn't matter where you start. It's beginning to understand that the value of your skills is different than the value of your own internal worth.
Yeah.
And they do somewhat reflect if you have a low self-value.
Yeah.
And so one of the things for coaches to really work on is, how do they see themselves? And one of the things I had to do with, Steve, I've worked with Steve a long time, and he had to work with me on owning my bio. You mentioned, being a Navy helicopter pilot. There were people who didn't even know that, because I just never really shared it. And I never really owned that until, a few years ago, working with Steve, like really being able to own it. It's not boasting, going back to what Meredith said. We're not boasting, we're sharing our experience, letting people know that we own who we are, and that we know that we can help. And that reflects in our bank account, that reflects in how do we share our fees? How do we raise them over time? And And that level of seeing, I'm where it comes from. Well, how do I fill that value, power, and safety from inside so that I can really speak the value of the skills that I'm offering to another person? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, and that's one of the things I think that stops coaches in their tracks. Is one of the things that Steve worked with me on was my self-esteem was my coaching fee, and I had the two conflated. They were married, and Steve really helped me to separate my self-esteem, build it up, but know that the coaching fee is just a number, you know.
Yes.
Mark, you're up.
I've had at least 3 or 4 questions, and I can't figure out which one to ask. My name is Mark Sheff. Nice to meet both of you.
Nice to meet you.
I've actually, Steve, I've had the good fortune of being coached by some of your coaches, including Dermot and Rich and Peleg. So it's a pleasure to meet you here. Actually, Dr. Kamin, Dr. Samuel, I would love to hear a little bit more, if you don't mind, actually dovetailing on Dermot's question. You know, I understand that I've read the Prosperous Coach, and I understand that, you know, we're dealing with a set of limiting beliefs, and, you know, it's important to either replace those beliefs or build muscles to work against that. Facts on the ground is, you know, it can be a long road, and it can be, you know, it can be a very repetitive road, and it can be filled with no's, which I know it's great to get lots of no's. But could you say, and maybe you say this in the book, what are some ways that you suggest or see that people, what are people actually doing to create that shift for themselves?
That's a great question. Thank you, Mark. I think one of the things is to, in chapter 3, we really talk about identifying the limiting beliefs and then flipping them. And so flipping them into the positive and realizing that many limiting beliefs come from feeling like I'm not enough, hearing, you know, people telling individuals that they're not enough. I'm rejected. What I want is not available to me, but it's available to everyone else. And so the ability for us to start to identify, well, where are those beliefs coming from? Because they can go from there. There's a long list of them. I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too whatever, I'm too this. And we can use whatever it is. And so the ability for us to actually write out what do we think, what do we already know consciously are the beliefs that might be holding us back. And then one is somewhat from Byron Katie's work is like, is it true? Is it really true that you're too young, too old, too whatever? The other thing is to look at it and say, well, if that's not serving me, what's a new belief that I'd like to choose into? And so to start to script those, because what we know about the brain is it can be rewired. Neuroplasticity is a thing. We can rewire it through looking at things, listening to them, making a recording for ourselves. I do hypnotherapy as well. But it's this ability for us to begin to understand that we can actually rewire ourselves for wealth, for success, and move into that. Now I'm going to add something here, which is kind of the underlying current of everything that's in the book. You can also practice your way out of a belief. And the ability to really look at your enrollment, grow your skills as a coach is the next level of that. Do the inner work, and then the outer is I just practice and practice till, like Steve would say, your phone number. Well, most coaches don't practice to that level.
Mm-hmm.
And I work with a lot of coaches. They say they practice, but they don't really go for it all in. And that's really that level of being able to say, oh, we have a belief, and if any other coach is doing what I want to do, I can do it too. I just got to practice. We look at Steve, we look at Rich, we look at all the shiny coaches and think, oh, well, they didn't have to practice. And I'm like, they practice. And I know for a fact, because I've talked to Steve's kids, he practiced. And so that level is really what's on offer for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Steve, I have a question for you. And it's something that you really helped me to practice. Because we call it a coaching practice, so we can charge people to practice coaching on them. I mean, where do you get that? Could you imagine going to like a dentist and he says, look, I'm going to charge you $2,000, but I'm new at this and I'm going to practice on you. $2,000 sound okay? I don't think so. Steve, you talk about in chapter 2 the inner game, and you say here this can be both fun and fulfilling. I think you're talking about business building. Can you talk a little bit about how or why building a coaching practice actually could be fun and fulfilling? Because I don't think most coaches think it is.
Yeah, what Kamin was just talking about, identifying beliefs, changing our relationship to our negative limiting beliefs about ourselves, so that it's only mind stuff. It's not really the truth about life, things I've picked up along the way, practicing my way out. It actually becomes fun to do the work of talking to people until they become clients, talking to them even to the point where they tell us they can't afford it, but having that talk be enjoyable for both of us anyway. And the more fun I allow this process to be, the more lighthearted it becomes and the more successful it becomes. I notice a lot of times I watch professional basketball or something like that, and you'll see the coach before a really important game, and he or she will often say, above all, have fun out there, people. Have some fun, play the game you love. And they know that their best performance comes when they're having a good time, when they're having fun. And that's really true in the coaching profession as well. The more fun I'm having, the more I can work late into the night, and I do my research and I listen to my audios and I study up on a potential client I'm going to be talking to, and I'm enjoying myself. And when the element of fun comes in, even the part that I used to have so much fear around, the part called paying my bills, paying off my debts, and making money, when I learned to put that into a game element, I would keep score sheets up on my wall. I'd have so many conversations I'm going to have this week, and I'd put boxes and I'd check it off, and I would keep score. And I would look for ways to put the element of fun into the work I was doing, and that would always lift it up and make it more successful.
Yeah.
And it takes practice, because we take everything so seriously, and that's where fear comes from, especially in this profession, because it can be a lonely profession. I'm sitting here all alone in my office. I have family members who are questioning my career choice, and I'm feeling like it's me against the world. I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to do it. And it can get very lonely and fearful. And I want to have fun with it. I want to reach out. I want to find another coach that I know, a colleague, and talk to her or him regularly when I'm starting, or join a group like this one. And when I hear other coaches and their questions and their worries or their concerns, I feel like, well, I'm not alone anymore. I'm like everybody else, and this is kind of fun, getting together and learning how to make money as a coach. So one of the things my coach impressed upon me, and he said, I want you to get a tattoo put on your arm called HFMM, having fun making money. And if you approach it that way, you will make money a lot faster than what you're trying to do now where you consider money to be like oxygen, like you're not going to live without it. And you're taking it so seriously that it's affecting your energy, it's affecting your creativity. The more lighthearted we are, the more creative we are, the better the ideas we get, and the more fun it is for potential clients to talk to us. So that's I think what I mean about the inner game and allowing myself to slow down. Is this fun yet? Am I having fun yet? No. I'm gonna take a walk around the block and get some oxygen and play a little music and do a little dance and come back. And let's get this thing on a more lighthearted level.
Yeah, and it's interesting because most of us love to play games.
Yeah.
And, it's like when I started my practice, and you said, Dermot, why don't you make more of a game of it? And for me, that was confusing because I thought, well, if I play a game, I don't know the result. And as a new coach, I want to know that if I have this conversation with this person, that they're going to pay me. And if I decide to build a business, that I want to know ahead of time that I'll get X, Y, and Z. But making it a game, it becomes, you wouldn't want to know the end result of a game. You might have an intention, but you wouldn't want to know that, hey, you can play the game and at the end of it, it's going to be, you already know the ending score. Part of the fun, I think, in building a business for a lot of coaches is the journey of it, of the fun of just trying stuff, Yeah.
Dermot, can I add something here?
Please, yeah.
The interesting thing is when Steve would tell me to make it a game, that didn't actually work for me.
Yeah, it didn't work for me either at the start.
So I used to say, before working with Steve, I used to have this inner table tosser. Like I want to know I'm going to win the game. Like, and so, but one of the things that really helped me was moving into a really testing. I'm testing different things. So one of the things I work with coaches on is like, you can have a vision of your business. You want your business to do X. The strategy you use may change, and it will change, as a matter of fact, as you kind of test things out. Instead of, as Steve says on his wonderful audio, don't trust it, test it. And so for me, kind of moving into whether it was, now I can gamify things a little bit better, but it was also for me kind of having like a scientist view of it and being able to test, well, if I practice this way and I test this out in the world and talk to people, what the results are, and tracking it, with the captain's log that Steve talks about. And so there's a real opportunity for us to move into either a game or a test, whatever works, to lighten it up so that it's not a pass fail on this coaching thing, that we can actually have fun moving into it, really play with it and look for different ways. I have, them wear glasses, and try different ways to see it. So it's more playful, as you said, more playful and fun.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And people like to have fun. They like to play. They like to experiment. This month with the coaches in May, we're doing a whole experimentation month where it's just about come up with the craziest experiment you can and put it into action. Yeah. All right, coaches, who else has got a question? Hands up. Jasmine, do you have a question? Jasmine always has questions. Whose hand is up?
Meredith's hand's been up for a while.
All right, let's go to, because we'll come back to you, Meredith, in just a moment. Let's go to Jasmine, Antonios, and then Meredith.
Thanks, Dermot. Welcome, Dr. Samuel and Steve. Great to be here with you and the rest of the group. Question for both of you. You've both had longevity in the industry as coaches, have found your success in your niches and who you like to work with, and you work with coaches. What do you find are the traits, the behaviors, the what have you, that really support coaches in having longevity in this business?
For me, it's a willingness to start over. So I think I have quit maybe 20 times where I just walked out and said, okay, I'm done. This is not going to work for me. I'm going to go back into my former work. I used to be in advertising. I used to be in the music business. I'm going to go back, eke out a living. At least I'll have a regular paycheck. And I won't have any of this stress. I'm done. And then the weekend comes, I get some rest, I have a good sleep, and Monday morning, I see opportunities I didn't see before. I'm going to check these out before I quit. And so it's a willingness to not to bounce back, to not take thoughts about quitting or leaving seriously. I think that's for my longevity, which is longer than anybody's that I know in this business. It's the ability to come back from what appeared to be defeat or failure. And then after maybe 48 hours of sleep and reprocessing, those failures were seminars. They were learning events. And I found important things out. And I thought, well, I'm really glad that happened. I'm not going to approach a corporation that way again, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to discount my fees with a person like that in the future, and then have them sign up with me for 4 more years. And I say, yeah, sure. And now I'm stuck with a fee for, I've made so many mistakes that the ability to not have failure be a problem or mistakes are not a problem, that leads to longevity. Seeing everything, I didn't always see it right away, but everything as great learning.
I'll add to that. Thank you, Steve, because Steve said mistake, I always put a hyphen in there, take. So it's just a do-over. It's like in a movie theater, movie making, it's like, well, let's do that one over. That didn't work. And again, going back to the difference between a vision and a strategy, those two are very different. And so you can hold the vision. Oh, that test did not work. Let's try it again. Let's rework it with my coach. Let's figure out what I did. Oh, and sometimes it's timing. So if you're playing with and you're testing things, then it's not like, again, going back to, it's not a pass fail. It's really like, oh, let me try this again. Let me see if I can make it different. And the other thing is, for me, if I had to go back to corporate, I'd be coaching somebody anyway, as you know, within seconds. If you drop me on another planet, I'm going to be sitting with the little aliens asking them questions. And so the ability to realize I'm a coach no matter what, I'm doing this incarnation as a coach, and no matter where you put me, then it goes to what Steve says. It's like, oh, okay, that didn't work. Let's just get back in the game of it. And so the playfulness of realizing I can't help but coach. I can't help but help people. Then it's like, okay, this long game, that didn't work. Let's try something else.
Yeah. Thank you, Kamin. Thank you, Jasmine.
Why do you think the aliens are going to be little?
I did just recently watch Arrival, and they were really big. So
that's a measure of your self-esteem.
I'm bigger than they are.
It also depends on what planet they're coming from.
That's right.
These guys are from Balloon Planet. All right, it's we're getting silly, which is a good thing. I just wanted to add there, Steve. By the way, if you've just joined us, we're talking to Steve Chandler and Kamin Samuel about their new book, Wealth Creation for Coaches. You don't have to be broke anymore. A wonderful, wonderful book. I've totally forgotten what I was going to ask there. Damn it, it was a good question too. Oh, well, it's gone. Antonios.
Thank you, Dermot. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you both. And my question is, what needs to have in mind a coach that wants to move from coaching one-to-one to group coaching?
What's the path to it, or the
In order
motive?
to make success in group coaching.
Mhm. Well, since I'll talk quickly, because I've just recently done it, because I was a hardcore one-on-one only person. And I like to always say that I tortured Steve, going to him numerous times with, I'd like to create a group. And he'd finally caught on about 5th time after I started and stopped. And he's like, Kamin, sorry, Steve, I do this all the time. Kamin, why do you want a group? And I'm like, to get a client. And he's like, then just get a client. And so over time, though, what I started to see was there were certain people who were coming and they had the same kind of profile. And I was saying the same things over and over again. Or they couldn't afford the higher rates that I charge. So the ability to put them into a group and then help them all at the same time, I discovered I love it, and it lit me up. And so then there are different levels. And so it's been a process, and for you Canadians, process being able to move it into that, but allowing myself to test it first before I called it anything, and then move it into more of a permanent part of my practice.
There's another element as well. For a group, I want to be good at communicating what this group is going to deliver. In other words, I want to give a reason ahead of time why this group might be a group that you'd like to join. I don't want to be vague about it. I don't want to say, well, we're just going to do a group and we're going to explore something. And I want to say this group has a purpose. And if you want to develop these 4 parts of your life, or you want to learn these things, or that's what the group is for. That's what we're going to do. When I didn't do that, when I just said, we're going to have a group, and I give it a vague title about living your dream or something like that, people would have a hard time choosing whether to join the group because they have no idea whether the group is really going to help them or address something they really want. So with a group, it takes a lot more time to get information out there ahead of time about what your group will be like, how and why it's going to cover certain topics, and how it will benefit you, and what you can come away with. And the more I did that, the faster people would join a group. And the less information I gave them about the group, the harder it was to get people into the group. Now, that's different than one-to-one coaching, because in one-to-one coaching, I'm not making any promises other than I'm committed to showing up and being present for you and helping you any way I can. That's as far as I can go. I don't want to make a promise beyond that, because the rest is up to you. But with a group, I'm not going to join a group unless I really think that group will serve my life, because I have to give time to it. I have to give money to it, usually. And so I want you to tell me more about what's going to happen in your group. What am I going to learn? Who will be teaching it? Where are they going to get their background from? So that, to me, is the primary difference between bringing people into a group and bringing a person into one-to-one coaching.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Good, Antonio. It's a great question. Thank you. Meredith, and then Irina. The lovely Irina is here.
Perfect. Thank you again for letting me ask the second question here.
Meredith, you can ask as many questions as you want. You're like,
Dermot,
we're gonna we're going to have you be royalty today. So you can do, if somebody's asking a question, Meredith, and you want to ask, you just say, excuse me, I've decided I want to, totally fine. Go ahead, Meredith.
Dermot, you have the gift of gab. I have the gift of questions. So the two of us together could talk for a really long time.
Yes, let's go make some money.
Perfect. So Stephen and Dr. Kamin, this is to both of you again. When you think back for your careers as being a coach, some of the decisions that you've made, some of the changes in your practice that you have, is there one particular decision or risk or change that you've made in your coaching practice over the years that really had a profound difference in your ability to either be a successful coach or ability to provide impact?
For me, it was, I'm not going to be afraid to share the work of other people. I used to try to be original. And this is, I've come up with a formula that is my formula. I, me, mine, and then I began to see that I was helping people if I passed along something. So I might pass along something I might say, I was with my coach last week, and I had a fear of talking to my teenage daughter about something, and here's how he helped me. Or I was in Byron Katie's school, and I learned from her how to challenge my thoughts and not just automatically believe a thought. And I'll share her process with you. It was really helpful to me. So when I relaxed around trying to be original and decided I'm just going to share whatever I think helps, I'm going to be with clients like I was when one of my children would come in and say, Dad, I've really got a problem. And I'm just going to let my heart connect to the client and not try to think, well, what's going to sound like an original coaching answer, and how do I sound wise? And so it was a decision to drop out of all this intellectual thinking and drop into my heart and have my connections with people, even with a large audience, be heart to heart, instead of trying to put on some kind of a show. It was kind of an internal decision I made. I just gave up trying to be impressive and original. It wasn't going to work anyway. I couldn't fool people very long.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks,
And-
Steve.
and
Kamin,
I think-
you want to add anything to
Yeah,
that?
I think for me, it was hiring a coach, because, you know, there was only about 6 months that I didn't have a coach, and I call it the crazy 6. Like I tried something, it kind of worked, but in hindsight, I would have rather had my coach with me, to vet and work through. So it's really this opportunity. Other than that 6 months, I've been coached pretty much straight through for almost 10 years. And so it's that the ability to bring whatever is going on in my life and my business to someone. And there have been some things that have happened in my life that, I needed my coach for. And I don't know where I'd be without his guidance. And so, and then the ability to quickly right side things, even whether if they were my business and some things, got a little off track, the coach then is there to help get it back on track faster. And I think I just recently worked with someone who had been a coach for, over a decade and had never hired their own coach. And so it was a wonderful experience. And we have a lot of people out there who are not realizing the opportunity for the inner and the outer growth by working with someone.
I'm gonna come in and take my privilege that Dermot gave me and ask me a quick follow-up to that. Have you worked with one coach throughout through most of your career, or have you taken the approach of working with different coaches to understand and learn different styles and different ways of going about coaching?
So I'm a unique person, I think. Once Steve allowed me to hire him, I was like, I'm not letting go of that. Right. And so it's also because I know myself. Like, I know that if up until this point, if you give me another coach, I could probably find a way to, go under the radar. My coach knows me, knows what I'm up to, knows when I'm kind of doing something. And so for me, has worked. I know Steve's very different. And it doesn't mean that I stopped my learning from either other coaches or other programs. The funny thing about having a PhD is I'm going to say it this way. It was Steve's fault, right? Because he said, when I came out with one of the other books, it said, Kamin Samuel, comma MS, and I have a whole bunch of degrees. And he said, have you ever thought about getting a PhD? And I'm like, Steve, you can't even don't even whisper those words. And so as soon as we hung up, I was Googling things and found the program that would fill what I wanted. And so now I at least have stopped that, I think. And so but learning from a lot of people and having one.
You'll appreciate the fact that I logged on and saw that it was Dr. Kamin, and I have a tab open right now that's PhD in.
It's a vortex. Watch out for the love of learning vortex.
I'm glad that you talked about that. Great question, Meredith, because when I started out, I suffered and toiled and struggled, and you name it, I did it. Didn't make any money at it for over 3 years, near 4 years. And then the light bulb went on, and I thought, well, hang on a minute, maybe I should hire someone who knows what the hell they're talking about and see if they could help me. And that's when I, hired Steve and went to his coaching school a few times. But it wasn't until I did that, I made no headway in this business. And I think that's really important for coaches to hear. My mom always said, you alone can do it, but you can't do it alone. And this business, I'm sure every business is the same, but in coaching business, it's really, really, really true that you are not going to do this on your own. Whether it's, you get into a program or you hire a coach. I don't know of any coaches, and I know a few of them, successful coaches, that did this by themselves. I don't know of any. Steve, anything to share on that?
Well, I agree with that. This profession is an apprentice-based profession because we don't go to a lawyer goes to law school and then works with other lawyers, senior partners who mentor them. A doctor goes to medical school, works with other doctors, mentors in the profession. And so coaches have to do it their own way. I've always had a coach, and I've had various coaches over time, not because I wanted to find different styles or anything. I just wanted different things. And I've had one main coach ever since I began coaching. And I have never known a really prosperous, successful coach who doesn't have a coach even after they become financially successful, because it helps. If something is helping my career move forward, and without it, I move more slowly and I'm trying to fumble my own way through, and when I could have someone who would speed that up, then it doesn't make sense for me not to have a coach.
Yeah.
So I've always had a coach, but I have used different people. I had a coach who specialized in listening. And I wanted to listen more to clients and talk less and learn how to listen better. So I hired a coach who was really known for that, and worked with him for 6 months along with my regular coach. And I have a couple of coaches now, mentors who are in certain spiritual areas that I love. But I've always had one primary coach. And Kamin says she, I tried to retire once, and Kamin wouldn't let me. She was coaching one of my children, and I was announcing to my daughter, I will be retiring soon. And she said, no, you're not. And I said, what do you mean I'm not retiring? How would you know? And she said, well, Kamin says you're not.
Yeah,
I
and
said,
I've heard him say that, Kamin. Like a couple of years ago, I heard him say he's retiring, and he's still here.
He said he was retiring, and I said, you can retire, and I'm still here. Like, I'm still working with you. So
yeah. So I tried to retire, and it wasn't any fun. I mean, I didn't like it. I thought it would be heaven. Oh, I won't have to work. I won't have to do clients. I'm going to be in heaven. And it didn't work for me.
No, no.
I didn't really realize how much fun this profession had become. I took it for granted, and so I tried to retire. But Kamin said, make an exception for me. And I said, okay, one client, that can't be hard.
he made more than one exception. I just wanted the record.
Eventually I did, Kamin, but you were the only exception at the beginning of my failed retirement. I failed at retirement.
I love it. There's a line in your book. I love it. Success takes commitment to the long game of being a coach. And I think a lot of coaches don't really understand that. Karen Davis, when I had her come into one of my programs, I said, what's the secret, Karen? And she said, stay in the game. We got 4 minutes before the doors close and we all have to go somewhere else. So let's take one more question, a brief question from Irina. Derek, if you want to email me the question, or Steve and Kamin can put their email in the chat box, you can email them the question, if that's okay. Kamin, Steve?
Sure.
So we get it all answered. Irina, what question do you have with a few minutes you still have?
Yeah, thank you for letting me ask the question. I actually want to continue the this topic of coaches. Carolyn Fryer Jones just recently shared this beautiful email and distinction of Ferrari coach versus Volvo, and I loved it. And I remember when I first hired, my first coach, and then jumped to my second coach. And
Irina, just for the sake of time, what question would you like to ask? Because we just have about 2 minutes.
I actually would like to hear Kamin and Steve's thoughts on that.
On what specifically? On
Volvo coaches versus Ferrari.
I am a bicycle coach. I'm not a Ferrari coach. But Carolyn was making a point, and I read her email too. I thought it was great. Make sure your coach is a better coach than you are. If you're just hiring a coach because their fee is low, it's harder to really get the kind of value you want. And that's the point she was making.
Yeah.
And I did not read the article yet. And so I'll go with what Steve said, that because it really is, it's looking for me, it's looking for fit and what are they doing so that whoever that coach might be is where I'm headed.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you, Irina. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with the minute and a half we have left, Steve, what do you want the coaches to walk away with from the book? If there was one thing that they could walk away with from the book, what would it be? What would you want to know?
Buy the book.
That's pretty good.
I want them to walk away with the book.
With the
That's
book.
with the book.
Kamin,
I love that.
you can't say walk away with the book too. You're gonna have to come up with something because he
So,
just stole the show
so
on
buy the book and do the book,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's the thing is, you know, when we were in the middle of actually writing this, there was some things that were kind of an interesting evolution in my own business. And I literally, we were in the editing process. I printed it out, put it in a 3-ring binder. I did the work all the way through to chapter 15,
Yeah.
then doing it again. And it's like, it's this ability for, again, that there's a wonderful storied past of these steps, getting them perfect. These steps, the reason I'm very literal, it is a step-by-step process. And so we've laid out, when Steve will tell you kind of the ideas of the prosperous coach, but he doesn't tell you how to put it in practice. My heart was to make sure that people knew exactly how to become a prosperous coach, one step at a time. So get the book and then do the book and then do it again. It's a spiral up process.
Yeah. That's why you're calling it a workbook, because you got to do the work to get the results. I'll tell you what, one of the biggest things I got from doing the work in the book, and I love that you bring neuroscience, NLP, psychology, coaching, law of attraction. It's all in there. I love that about the book because they're all subjects that I love. One of the things that was huge for me was the morning routine, you know, the wealth exercise of sitting down and thinking about the word wealth and then writing down some ideas. And then in the evening, I started writing down what I've been noticing during the day, a new client, a new thought, I found $1, you know, something like that. Kamin, I have to tell you, I really appreciate that you put that in the book, because I've been playing with the law of attraction for many, many years and had great results, but this has really cemented into my experience that the law of attraction really works. And the more I notice it, the more it works.
Right. And
So,
it's science.
yeah,
It's really
science.
And the reason I got a PhD in positive neuropsychology was to give myself the scientific words for kind of the woo-woo stuff I knew.
Yeah.
And so that is all science that we're really sharing in there about what you focus on expands.
Yeah. I love that part of the book. I really did. It was a nice culmination of you and Steve together. With all of that, thank you. By the way, thank you all the coaches for showing up today. We wanted to do something different today, so give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you so much. I didn't have to prepare for the interview, so it was fantastic. And you guys had to do all the questions. So I really appreciate that. I'll make sure to send out a recording to everyone. And if you're listening out there in the world, thank you so much for joining us. Until the next time, you've been listening to the Celtic Coach radio show. Think big, have fun, stay curious, and we'll see you all soon. Cheers, everyone.